This week's episode is brought to you by Campaign Refinery, an amazing new email marketing automation tool. Look, in the world of digital marketing, there's a lot to keep track of. We all know this. As much as we're in love with social media and the power of social conversation here at Social Link and on the All About Digital Marketing podcast, we are well aware at just how powerful email marketing can be. Email marketing is not dead. In fact, it's never been more important to help you leverage your presence everywhere else into the one channel that you'll own, regardless of what changes Facebook, Twitter, or any other platform makes in the future. I've known the founder, Travis Ketchum, for years, and he's been a past guest on the podcast, episode 15 if you want to listen to it. I've personally used his other products before, and they've been fantastic. The amount of thought that he's put into each and every one of what he's created has been incredible. I'd highly encourage you to try their free 14-day trial at campaignrefinery.com to see what world-class email marketing automation can do for you and your business. Massive thank you to Travis and Campaign Refinery for their support of the All About Digital Marketing show. Welcome to the All About Digital Marketing podcast. The show all about
digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Digital marketing.
Brought to you by Social Link, a digital marketing agency specializing in social media and content marketing for brave brands and forward-thinking SMEs. I'm your host, Chris Bruno, and as always, we're here to bring you the most actionable tips, tricks, tools, and insights to help you achieve more when it comes to your digital marketing. Subscribe to the show and be sure to share with a friend if you found something useful or interesting. You can find all the show notes and more information on www.allaboutdigitalmarketing.co.uk. Andrew, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, thank you, Chris. I'm excited to be here and dive into our conversation.
So I'm looking forward to this as well because you guys do things a little bit differently. But before I kick off and start asking any questions or taking us down any rabbit holes, you are the CEO and founder of No Typical Moments. Can you just give a little bit of insight as to what you guys do and also how you got here personally?
Sure. So let me share a little bit of backstory and that will morph into what exactly we're up to in 2020. So the organization was actually an idea I had when I was a college student in the spring of 2011. I had experimented in a handful of different careers, from interning on Wall Street to working at a political consulting firm in Washington, D.C., to actually interning on a campaign. And none of those directions really resonated with me. It was never something I could see myself being excited to get into the office on a Monday morning and dive into. So my senior year of college, I was doing a lot of reflecting and experimenting with jobs and applications and resumes. And I just so happened to one day be sent a link to a podcast with this gentleman named David Garland. And it was all about the internet and marketing, online marketing. This was in the infancy of Facebook ads. Instagram wasn't even a thing back then. And I listened to this one episode in which this guy, I talked about how he was running a blog from Costa Rica making six figures. Now, as a college student, that sounded radically more interesting than anything else I'd ever been exposed to. So I was really just amazed with how he had created such a great lifestyle for himself. And from there, I started to dive into what the whole internet world was about. And I always had this focus of how could I utilize the internet for good and to market brands and ideas that I believed in. And we had a couple of morphing of how that or a couple of iterations of how that model looked during our evolution. At one point in time, we actually allocated 50% of our client work towards pro bono causes with nonprofits. I shifted that model in two directions. One, to work with for-profit companies who had a clear mission to make the world a better place, and then also shift our services from more organic to a paid advertising standpoint, as I really saw the value we could bring to companies if our work was directly impacting the revenue they were bringing into the business. So we've morphed over the years and have niched down to working with authors and thought leaders on marketing their online courses, masterminds, membership sites, online events, formerly in-person events. And we handle everything from Facebook ads, Instagram, Google, YouTube, Instagram, to all the back-end funnel configuration that is involved in acquiring customers online for organizations.
So this sounds awesome because I'm a massive fan of working for yourself. I have done since 2008. I've never looked back, even in the hard times. The idea of giving back is something that we try and do nowhere near as much as you are, but we try and always help at least one project a year, which is for either a non-profit or for a community interest company, as they're called in the UK. And we've been involved in charitable organizations as well, as much as we can and as much as we can help out. And there's something I want to come back to. So this idea of, you read and you're reading about this guy or listening to this guy who basically set up a blog and ended up creating sort of a 6-figure salary. And I think it's something that lots of people really want. So the digital nomad kind of lifestyle, as it's called, the ease at which, people tell you it's, you can buy my course and I'll teach you how to sell courses online. And that's it. You can make money really easily. What's your honest opinion for people out there that are either in the process of starting or they've just kind of started playing with the idea of setting up a business online? What's your kind of advice, and also what's your kind of gut feeling towards these kind of projects and how hard it can be to actually get them to take off?
It's extremely challenging. And I think there's a lot of BS out there of, living from the beach and sipping margaritas all day and living the 4-hour work week lifestyle that Tim Ferriss talks about, which really I view more so through the lens of automation and delegation. I would say that entrepreneurship is a very challenging road to go down, with a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And I think what you're talking about is a lifestyle business, which I think is also very different from a growth-oriented company. And I think for our organization, I 100% had the philosophy of a lifestyle business. And I would say a couple of years ago, I wanted to turn it into a real organization with systems and processes and strategy and growth plans and trajectories and budgets. And it's a much, much different approach to business that we've been undertaking in the last handful of years. I would say to anyone who thinks that they can, just buy one of those how to create a course and they're going to make 6 figures, it's not that in any regards. I mean, with the way the digital landscape has shifted, it's really important for our clients to have some data that they're bringing to the table before they embark upon a Facebook advertising campaign, for instance, because you probably need to go through if you've never launched a campaign, you probably need at least a 90-day window for testing, iteration, and the first month you're going to lose money. We always say second month you're going to break even, third month you can start to turn a profit. So it's really important to even be aware of your numbers enough to know if you can have that sunk cost potentially if you don't recap your investment. So we definitely look to organizations that have been growing their email list, their website traffic through other mediums. They've been diving into affiliates, and now they're ready to dive into Facebook ads, because it's going to feel a lot more like you're putting gasoline on a fire versus playing Russian roulette if you have not built up some of those other data points online.
I think it's really interesting, and I'm glad that you basically feel the same way as I do when you've come up with that answer. There's way too many people that buy into the BS, as you called it, and I'll stick to that because it's more polite and it means I don't have to include a bleep. But yeah, definitely. It's hard. Digital marketing is often sold as this magic button that if you know what magic button to press, everything's going to work out really well. And the truth is, for most marketers, and you've just said it there, right? A lot of it, everything that we do basically is pretty much trial and error. It's experimenting. It's trying to find the right thing that fits with the right people, in the right audiences, on the right platform, with the right content, graphic, text, whatever it might be. And it's a constant evolution. And I wanted to ask you, from your experience, how do you try and help people to understand that this is a journey, right? Because you've mentioned there, month 1, it's a sunk cost. Month 2, hopefully you're breaking even. And month 3, you start to make some money. But you must have had this as well, right? The people that come to you and say, I need some quick wins, things like that. How do you address that with clients? And how can we try and help as many people that are listening to this to understand that it is a process, it is a journey?
So from an agency relations standpoint, maybe I can address it from that viewpoint because that's my role day to day. And a lot of my job is actually enrolling clients into the business to work with us. So I have those first conversations with people who get introduced to us, I'm meeting them out and about at events, I guess, in a pre-COVID world. And it's very, very important to set that expectation for me in a sales process of this is realistic expectations, and also just be brutally honest with people who, watch some webinar by Russell Brunson and expect to make six figures on their first ever funnel. And being even so clear with them of, hey, these are the expectations and this is what I can promise you right now. And I say, the only thing I can guarantee is we'll figure out what it costs you to acquire a lead in a sale. If you have no prior data that you're bringing to the table, I can't promise anything else. And if you want me to promise anything else, then you should go to a different agency that has that silver bullet, because we haven't discovered it. When we're actually then in the relationship, when we have a campaign moving, it's really important as well that we have very clear goal setting with our clients. So they understand that their campaign is not going to jump to a 10x ROAS in the first week of running ads. So being very clear of, hey, we're going to be testing, your lead costs are going to be all over the place, pretty much ignore that. And this is when we can make better decisions with your data. And so we do a couple of things to stay in communication with the clients, to also ensure that they're not creating stories in their own head, or they're not talking to their friend who hired an agency and they got these results. It happens all the time. So we have weekly check-in calls with our clients to run through the data and continuously reset goal expectations. And we also send weekly data reports to show them this is what happened in the last week, and then this is what we're planning to do in the week forward to improve your data sets. And maybe you are a business owner who's listening to this right now, and I would recommend, I'm a strong believer in delegation and outsourcing. And before you go the route of hiring an agency, a contractor, whatever it looks like, I really believe it's on you to do some self-education on digital, so you can actually guide that relationship with them and you're not going to go in blind. And also you can call out agencies BS if they're promising you the world. And you've watched your webinars, you've been on digitalmarketer.com, and the progression that this takes. I think that would be great for any company owners to do too. And we love it when we have a marketing coordinator and we're not working with the author content expert, as they're an author content expert in whatever realm of education it is. They don't have that background of knowing how to scale a Facebook ad campaign. So having that marketing manager is a really great hire to have in place to be that buffer between agency to CEO.
I think it's always interesting as well, because what you're mentioning there, understanding and getting that little bit of self-education so that you can get to grips at least with the process that you're about to embark on. But I find it can be very difficult, and I can understand why it's so difficult for small business owners to really get to grips with it, because as you go online and as you start to fall down the digital marketing rabbit hole, you'll start to read that, what you have to be doing is SEO. And then the next article you'll come across will be what you have to be doing is PPC. Then the next article will say what you have to do is get on TikTok and do stupid dances to make sure that your accountancy business becomes a huge success online. And, there's so much advice. I put it slightly in inverted commas. There's some that's better than others. And, we're probably equally to blame in the fact that there's just so much information out there, because we create a lot of content around social media, about being social online, about creating that engagement, not just hoping and waiting for it. But it's a very difficult space to really dig deep on, because it's just so wide. And to get that basics of knowledge and information, the old expression of sometimes a little bit of information is dangerous, right? Just having that enough of an understanding to think you're on top of it and that you know what SEO means, or what PPC is all about, but not realizing actually how deep it goes and how much evolution there have been for people like yourself, or even myself, or our team over the last 10 years, as these platforms have grown, as these platforms have changed, as the user progression has changed, as the platform itself in terms of UI and UX is changing, as platforms have become combined and Facebook advertising also goes on Instagram. All of these different things become quite challenging for people. So would you say that it's more important for somebody to make sure that they find the right agency for them in terms of that relationship and that open communication? Or is it more important for them to at least have some kind of basic understanding that would really help them to guide that relationship?
I would say, especially if it's a small business, the CEO and founder really should be doing that self-education to make the correct hiring decision of that agency. And also know, once they've done their research, to know, hey, SEO really is the starting point of what I should be embarking upon.
Very good. So there you go, peeps. You've all heard it straight from Andrew. You need to get on that self-education journey and start reading, and let us know on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram how deep you go down the rabbit hole. I'd love to hear more and understand that from you guys' point of view as well.
One other point, Chris, to that I think is really important, that there's so many other ways to generate leads for your business before Facebook ads. And I would make sure that your offline stuff is really dialed in terms of, let's just say you're a coach and you have a one-on-one and a group coaching program. Before you even think about Facebook ads, I would really make sure that one, you're delivering great results for your clients, because it's going to naturally lead to referrals and introductions for you. And then I would really make sure that you're beefing up that referral network, making sure that's iron tight. I would then recommend even diving into affiliate relationships. And then Facebook ads would be the third thing to even think about. So, and at the same time, as a business owner, if you're creating an internet-based business, it's on you then, because you chose that career route, to then have that education in place to know how to actually build a internet-based business. And if that's not your thing, then honing it on whatever offline lead gen sources is definitely the route to be taking for your organization. And I think we're also just in a world with COVID, with us being quarantined in our home still for the foreseeable future. I don't know if we can get around as a society with not being tech literate right now. It's a necessary skill set to have to be a relevant worker in the year 2020.
I recorded a podcast the other day and somebody was saying, right, there's no such thing anymore as 100% offline business. And it really made me kind of look back and think to myself, actually, this is completely correct. It's 100% accurate. It doesn't matter what you do and how you do it. There's always going to be a blend. And like you said, COVID and everything that's happened in 2020 so far has given us all a deeper understanding and a deeper realization of just how important it is to be online, to be tech savvy, like you said, to understand. And for some people, by the way, that transition has been as simple as getting comfortable with platforms like Zoom. But for other people, it's getting comfortable with the fact that, that e-commerce website that you kind of thought about maybe doing one day is now more relevant than ever before. Understanding how third parties sell through Amazon is hugely important, because those things today are actually make or break for your business, as opposed to maybe a year ago when everyone was walking down the high street and finding your shop. And that probably wasn't such an issue at that point. And I think that's something that's really interesting for lots of people to kind of take on board. And I think here's another question for you then. So after they've done their offline parts, and, I agree with you completely as well, deliver the best possible product, solution, service to your customers, and that in its own right is part of your marketing, right? It creates fans, it creates people who love you, that aren't scared to comment and mention your name to other people, and that's hugely important. But when people get to that first step in the digital world, and again, remembering that some people might not be so tech savvy, they might not already be read up on whatever the subject might be, but what would your first step be as a recommendation for them?
My first recommendation is your website, with that being the home base of your organization. And I think there's two types of websites you could be thinking about. One is, I'll just use that coaching example. Maybe you're not going to be driving traffic to your website right now, but just having a clean website that truly represents who you are and your unique skills that you're bringing to the marketplace is really important, because people, once again, there's no business that's completely offline. People are 100% going to Google search you and go to your website and read more about you. So you really want to be making sure that that's representing yourself to the best of your abilities. Maybe if you're an e-commerce brand, getting some a little bit more of a robust website with a Shopify being built into it with some basic SEO would be a little bit of a more advanced first website to be having if you're going to be driving sales through your website.
I am amazed actually still today that there are some businesses out there that don't necessarily put their digital presence in what I would consider, and again, I'm probably biased because of the fact that I work in digital marketing, but that don't actually put that online presence as high up as I think it should be on the priority list. Because what you've just mentioned there is, I think, 100% true for the vast majority of people listening and also for the vast majority of people in the world. If you're looking for a business, the first port of call is almost a Google search. And the Google searches, or even a Google Maps search or Apple Maps search or whatever else, is pulling all this rich data from all over the place. And things like Google My Business to make sure that your business comes up on a local search, for example, can have huge results. And even if it's not having huge results in the sense of, fine, it might not be generating you 100 leads a week right now, but it allows people to verify you are who you say you are. Right? There's this kind of little trust point of, I met this person who's, I'm going to say, an accountant or who's a coach, even, for example. I want to see who they are before I hand over money. And the first point of call is always going to be that digital presence, whether it be the LinkedIn page for the business or the LinkedIn page or profile of the owner, or whether it's the website. And do you find that there's still a fair amount of people there that aren't necessarily prioritizing their digital presence as much as they should?
Definitely. I think the biggest thing is not believing you need to be everywhere and anywhere all at once. I think it's just taking it one platform at a time. So, if you're a service-based business, having a decent looking website and a quality LinkedIn page is probably all you need at the very onset. Don't get so confused. Do I need an AdWords campaign? Do I need to be actively posting to Instagram? Do I need TikTok? Think about the highest leverage things you can be doing and focus in on those things at first and just continuously chop away at the other ones.
So this is really cool as well, because I am actually a big fan of Tim Ferriss, and I mention him a lot on this show and pretty much every other piece of content that I make, because I do have a lot of time for him. But the 4-hour work week is something that I think is really interesting, because people think that book is about working 4 hours a week. And something that you mentioned earlier in terms of, automation, systemization, what sort of things can you put in place, delegation, all of that is what the 4-hour work week is about. And I think what's even more interesting is what you've just mentioned there as well. What are your highest leveraged possibilities or actions that you can do online? And I think that's also the big part of the 4-hour work week, right? You shouldn't be trying to do all things for all people all over the place. And like you said, being on TikTok, if you're an accountancy firm and doing a dance, isn't going to help you create any kind of real leads or anything else. It might go viral, it might be funny, but it's not necessarily going to be the piece of content that really helps you the most. And I think what I'd like to know from your side is encouraging people to stick to 2 platforms like you just mentioned. So for example, their website and a LinkedIn page for a service-based industry, but actually doing that and doing it well in a way that can generate leads, that can generate interest, and can also back you up when you are meeting people through other different networks. So for example, whether that's a referral, somebody sends me a referral, the first thing I do is go check out who they are. Depending on who sent me the referral, it has a different weighting, obviously, depending on how much you trust that person's opinion for that particular subject. But I think that's a hugely powerful message for everyone listening, right? You don't need to have YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Twitter, and a website and try and make all of those things work. And the reality is, as a small business with limited resources, if you try to do that, there's a very, very strong possibility that you're going to get nothing out of any of those channels. And in fact, actually probably create a worse presence online than if you were just to shut all those things down and focus on 2. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it goes again to your point of really figuring out where your potential customers are and honing in on those platforms. So to your example, if you're an accountant, it makes no sense to be on TikTok and creating funny little dances for yourself. LinkedIn would be great. And probably Facebook too, as it tends to skew a little bit older. If you're marketing stuff that's more towards teenagers and college age students, TikTok could be a really great resource and platform for you. Maybe you're a at-home workout instructor. TikTok could be a great way to be connecting with the younger demographic and younger generations.
I think that's always a good piece of advice for everyone listening, and trying to make sure that, again, remembering that we're creating content for our clients, for our potential audience, for our target audience persona. We're not trying to create content for ourselves. Otherwise, chances are we won't get any leads from it. So Andrew, from your side, obviously you guys have done a lot of work to help companies that aren't necessarily for profit or that are socially good causes, things like that. What are the big differences for anyone who's listening who is working for a nonprofit or for a community interest type of project? What are the big differences that you notice for them when it comes to their digital marketing? What are the things that they need to do differently?
One thing that I've definitely noticed over the years with nonprofit organizations is a resistance to market, as it's a very for-profit business ideology. And I think there's a lot of amazing ways in which nonprofit organizations can tap into the internet. The biggest one is utilizing Google AdWords, Google Grants, I guess they call it, for nonprofit organizations, in which you have up to $10,000 a month of free money from Google to advertise. So you're a nonprofit, that's a no-brainer where you should be directing your advertising spend. $10,000 a month of free money is amazing. And I know a great organization that actually helps with setting up and acquiring the Google Grant and managing it. It's called Nonprofit Megaphone. I don't remember the website off the top of my head. I know their CEO's name is Grant. Great organization that helps out organizations like that.
That's awesome. I'm going to add a link I'll find them online. We'll add a link to the show notes for anyone there. And yeah, like you mentioned there, right? $10,000 of free money. I think every for-profit company would do anything to try and get their hands on something similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the thing to remember too is, with not being a nonprofit professional, I don't know if I'm the best one to talk about their operating income and all that. But I think in terms of marketing, I would recommend to reframe your mindset to viewing this as a cost to an investment to acquire donors and continuously engage with your donor base and spread your message. There's organizations that have done really great jobs of utilizing, for instance, Facebook ad campaigns to raise money for the causes, acquire signatures for causes that they're supporting. Charity How To is a great, or not Charity How To, that's a former client of ours. Charity Water. They do a really great job with their advertising campaigns of educating the public about the issue, and then also using Facebook ads to acquire donors. And what we do with our for-profit clients is we figure out a math equation essentially of understanding what is the lifetime customer value of these individuals who buy products, and how much are we willing to pay to acquire those customers online. If the average lifetime customer value is $200, you create a math equation in which you go, okay, I'm willing to spend up to X amount to acquire that customer, knowing this will be their total revenue they bring to the business over a handful of years. And I think you could create a similar equation as a nonprofit to go, what is the average lifetime donor value? How much are we willing to spend to acquire the individual to make their first donation? And that's how you'd want to lay out that campaign to really make sure that this money is being spent responsibly, because it's money not being utilized directly to your cause, but it's helping to fund your organization. So ideally, you can be less reliant on grants, and it's a way to diversify earned revenue coming into your nonprofit.
Absolutely agree. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily realize, is that, again, to looking at those numbers and understanding what those key performance indicators like a lifetime value, and then understanding as well, what is your real margin? What's your real profit from that particular lifetime value as well? Because there's no point in finding out that it's actually costing you money to acquire a customer. And there's nothing worse than figuring that out after you've spent a lot of money and not realizing it before you start. Andrew, help everybody out that's listening as well. Can you give anyone any kind of advice for if they're thinking about starting out with Facebook ads or an online advertising campaign? What are some of the key criteria? And I'm guessing that things like, knowing your strategy, understanding who your target audience is, all of those sort of things. But I talk about that a lot. So I'd love to get in a little bit technical detail in terms of getting involved, people that want to start doing some Facebook ads. What are the key things that they need to look out for? What are the key pitfalls that they should be aware of? And what are the nice things that they can do that can really help them to start generating some results?
Sure. I know there are a lot of questions there, so I'm just going to start talking. And if there's any points I didn't hit on, Chris, just let me know. I can revisit that. So I think at the onset, you need to be clear on what your customer journey looks like online. So being able to map out of Facebook ad to free opt-in to email sequence to first offer being introduced, for instance. So you can really make sure that you're not just generating leads, but you're also have an actual sale on the back end that you're nurturing that relationship into. That's one thing. I would say next is doing your research to understand, is your potential customer, and ideally you've done some avatar work, is this individual actually on Facebook, and is there a big enough market to actually advertise to? And there are very weird and interesting niches you can find within Facebook. So I was having a sales call with someone a few weeks ago, and he was looking for very specific terms related to labor unions in specific states in the United States. With not having much background in that, in the middle of the sales call, I just said, I believe these people are going to be on Facebook because people are recognizing their employer, their skill sets, their interests, and we give so much data to Facebook every day with how we engage in the platform. Let's just do some interest searching within Facebook to see if these people are actually there. And every single term he came up with that was within Facebook that we could market and target. So now that you've had your journey flow, your avatar, you've done some referencing to see if there's actually a big enough market to advertise to, it's really important to think about your creatives. When you think about Facebook advertising, it's very much a pattern disruptor. So people aren't on Facebook to purchase your product. It's different than when you're on Google and you're actively searching for your solution. You're on Facebook because you're looking at travel photos of your friends. You're trying to stalk your ex-high school boyfriend or girlfriend. You're trying to find cute photos of dogs. It's every reason besides purchasing that product. So to capture someone's attention, you need something that's going to be a pattern disruptor that they're going to stop their infinite scroll, pause for a split second, and be captivated enough to actually click your ad and then go to the next phase of that customer journey process. And this will be a combination of the copy you utilize that's really speaking to that individual, and then either graphics or video to enroll them to click and learn more. And the last thing I would say would be the goal setting, which I spoke about at the beginning of this. So the first couple of weeks are just a true experiment to flush out what it's costing you to acquire leads and measure how people are navigating through your actual email sequences into your first product offer. And I would even take this in 30 and 90-day chunks. So first 30 days, you should be prepared to not make any money, and strictly it's a data test to understand what it costs you to acquire a lead and a customer. Second 30 days, I would reframe your goals to at least break even on ad spend to revenue you're bringing in. And then the next 30 days is you start to generate a profit. And after those 90 days, as the business owner, I would evaluate, does this have some momentum? Do you believe that you could take this to the next level and it could be a great marketing arm to generate leads and sales for your business? Or did you just completely miss the mark over the last 90 days and you lost all of your money? Hopefully you didn't go through that much in an ad spend. And one point to make about that is you can actually dictate to these platforms how much you want to spend every day into the month. And I would recommend, if you're going to be a business owner experimenting, at least have $500 you're willing to spend in advertising. That should give you enough data to make educated decisions to move forward with. To one of your points too, some things that are exciting, Chris, I would say having audiences you're bringing to the table Say you've been really great about building your list over the years, but you haven't actually ran an ad campaign. What you can do is create audiences based upon that data. So there's 3 types of audiences we talk through with our clients. The first is cold interest targeting, which is where you have your avatar and you say, my customer is a 25 to 40-year-old man who lives in California who, likes Tony Robbins and Oprah. If you're selling a meditation product. The next bucket is what we call lookalike audiences. So you can actually upload your email list to Facebook. You can upload your past buyer list. You can upload website traffic if you have had the Facebook pixel installed, and your Facebook fans. And you can upload that data to Facebook, and Facebook will say, here's another 1 million plus people who match the same demographic and psychographic information as all these audiences. So you can see how powerful this would be if you have a past buyer list. You upload that to Facebook, and then Facebook says, here's 1 million other people who are just like these individuals who've already purchased from you. And then the last bucket we talk about with our clients is warm audiences. So that's when you're directly uploading your email list to Facebook. You're taking your website traffic, your Facebook fans, and you're running ads specifically to those individuals. Now that it's an amazing group. The thing though is that you will run through those audiences very quickly unless you have a massive list you're bringing to the table. So that's why you need those 3 buckets. So once your warm audiences are saturated, you have some others that you can dive into and run ads to. And maybe in those first 30 days, to your point earlier about quick wins, if you have a good sized email list, you might be able to run ads just to your list and bring in some customers as you're touching them at a different online touch point. But if you have a 10,000 person email list, you can only show those ads so many times to those individuals until you're actually creating a bad experience with your customers, and it may be hurting your brand actually in the long term.
Don't oversaturate your audience.
Correct. You're going to start to annoy them if they see your ads too frequently. And Facebook actually will allow you to set parameters that you'll only show this ad X number of times. And I believe our advertisers usually set it at about 8. That's the common marketing thing where someone needs to see a message 8 times before they decide to take action on it.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, before we wrap up, out of interest, and this is purely personal because I'm always interested in this, what's your favorite platform for you personally?
What's
the one that you spend the most time on?
I before COVID, I would have said Facebook. I cannot take the articles and dialogues that are going on in Facebook comment world anymore. So I've been shifting actually personally a lot more to LinkedIn. When I want to hear stuff going on in the world, I want to hear it from reputable sources and articles, and I like hearing the business and economic impact of a lot of these things. And I see stuff on LinkedIn from even a comment section standpoint, it's a lot more tame. I think because people are aware their employer is going to be on there, and you don't want your crazy comments being relayed back to your company. I find the information I gather on LinkedIn really, really supportive to my interests and what I'm wanting to learn about. And I think with Facebook, my personal opinion is that it's being a little crowded right now with just the crazy everything going on in the world. And LinkedIn's remained a little bit more professional, in my opinion, and factual.
I'd have to agree with you on the LinkedIn seems the most civilized currently these days, but the polarization has been happening for far too long on social media. So hopefully one day we'll get past that, but I don't imagine that will be anytime soon, unfortunately. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people find you online? What's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, our website, it's notypicalmoments.com. And then LinkedIn, you can look me up, Andrew Gottlieb.
Perfect. We'll add both of those links to the show notes. So if you want to get in touch with Andrew, please don't hesitate. Andrew, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us today, and looking forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
The All About Digital Marketing podcast is brought to you by Social Inc. a distributed digital marketing agency specialised in delivering results through online campaigns. Whether it's content marketing, social media marketing, online advertising or web design, we've got you covered, from strategy through to delivery. If you're struggling with your digital marketing, get in touch today by simply visiting www.socialinc.co.